Hey there, in this video clip we will be taking a look at how to convert percentages to decimals. So here's an example, 25%. We recognize it as a percentage because of this symbol. Let's first make sure we have a way of understanding this symbol, because if you understand the symbol, you might better remember how to convert it to a decimal. Okay, the word percent comes from per and cent, which in Latin it's probably percentum. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. Or in Spanish, por cien, which roughly translates to by the 100, or another way that I kind of prefer is out of 100. Out of 100 is the way I prefer because I could imagine it like 100 units of something. It doesn't matter what. So here's 100 units of something. Imagine you go to the store and you have to buy it in a pack or in bulk, and they only sell it to you in a pack of 100. So out of 100. So now let's take this symbol and kind of use the symbol to remember this idea, right? So this symbol, how can we look at it and remember that it has to do with 100? Well, take the symbol and use that slash, and imagine that slash as a 1, so it becomes a 1, but it also stays there. So here that slash is going to stay there, but it's also going to produce a 1. And it kind of looks like a 1 that's kind of crooked, right? So if you remember it like that, you'll remember a slash and a 100, which hopefully it'll make you, again, think, oh, okay, it's something about 100. So you start with 100, and the first number right here is saying, out of 100, I want 25. So if 100 is the total amount that there are, I want 25 of those 100. So now we've got a way of looking at this. So it would be 25 out of the slash, just like we had up here, out of 100, right? And I added the decimal here and a 0 just to help us with the next step here. So 25 and 0/10, right? This doesn't change anything. I'm just adding another place value. So now if we were to do the division, right, because that's what this symbol represents, it's really a fraction. So for now we want to convert this into a decimal, we just need to do the division. So 100 fits into 25 how many times, right? So we have 25.0 over here. First thing, we're going to need a decimal up here, so we're going to go ahead and put that decimal, and so we're going to increase to that 0 place. And now we can fit 2 100s into 250, right? And if we subtract that out, we're left with 50. And now we're going to use another place value there. We're going to bring down to 0. And how many times can we hit? How many 100s can we fit into 500? 5. So we go ahead and multiply that out, and we end up with a 0. And our final answer of 25.25, right? That is our final answer. Now a shortcut for this is the following. Because if you realize you're always dividing by 100 when you're doing percentages. So here's a shortcut for you. You can take your number, right, and you remember to add the decimal if it does not have one, just so that you have a reference point. And then the only thing you need to do is move the decimal over 2 times to the left, because division by 100 will always cause that effect. So here I move this decimal over 1 and 2 spaces, and I'm left with 0.25. This would be the same if this was just a single digit. So let's say it wasn't 25, it was just 5. I would move over, and I would move over one more time, which means I'd actually have to place a 0 here, and it would be 0.05. But in this case, we have the 2, so we're going to represent it there. And so now at this point, we get rid of that decimal that we had originally, get rid of these lines, and we're left with 0.25, which is the same. Okay, hopefully you realize that that's not too difficult then. Anytime you see this representation of a percentage, right, to convert it to decimal, its equivalence, just remember that, oh, that little percent sign means there's a slash and the 0, 0, and I'll drop a 1 because it's kind of like an evil twin coming out of there. And so now you'll have 25, that number, slash 100, and you do that division, get your result, which easily is divided. I mean, easily you can compute using that shortcut that I mentioned, moving it over twice, and you've got your decimal equivalence.